Hello, welcome to this hand history review with me, Brandon Shields. I'm here to talk over a hand that I thought was really interesting. It was played at a GUKPT event through the Grosvenor Poker Series. £1,100 entry between in my opinion, two of the best players in the UK, very well-thinking players, stuff that people that we want to try and learn a lot from. So without further ado, let's watch this hand unfold. I'm just going to pause it between decisions, and then I'm going to give my input and what I would do, what I think they're thinking, and then let's go on from there.
So Ludo's raised to 3.6. We'll just leave the quiz question for a second. Ludo's got raised with the sixes, and Rich has found the ace queen mine. Looks like a 3-bet's coming from Rich with the ace queen. Yeah.
Okay, so the first decision's in the hand. Raising with sixes isn't something we really need to consider. Ludo's in the low jack or +2, which is free to the left of the button. And now Kellett has the first decision here in the cutoff with ace queen offsuit. So here I believe mixing call and free bet is going to be the right thing to do. It would depend on the stacks after me, the stack of the player I'm free betting, their perception of me, my perception of them. It's all about the current metagame at the time, so this is something that we can go either way with, so I think free betting is very good. And then let's move back to what Ludo does.
Yeah, 11.4 he's made it. Now Ludo, this is one of those spots where you can learn here, Phil. Look, if you've raised with a small pair, looking at the stack depths, you're up against another good player. Can you peel here to try and flop a set? Are you getting the right price? Will the other good player pay you off if you do flop a set? Is the other good player got nothing, so maybe I should 4-bet? So this is a good chance to see how someone as good as Ludo plays a small pair here, and whether Rich has made the right bet size and what Rich...
Okay, so Ludo goes for the call here, which I personally agree with. I think I would also consider going all in occasionally if I thought my opponent was extremely aggressive and the context of the tournament was slightly different. Not something I want to do too often, but it's worth considering. Being out of position against a good player with a hand that plays nicely as an all in. But I prefer a call mostly because we're nearly 50 big blinds deep. The free bet size isn't too much. It's less than 7.5 big blinds total. We've already put just over 2 big blinds in. We're getting a really good price. And sixes isn't... It's not as simple as we're set mining. Sixes is a hand that gets to win sometimes otherwise. It doesn't get counterfeited too often, so I like all the decisions so far, and I'm really happy that I can at least have an idea of what they're thinking, so let's move forward.
Rich does if they both flop nothing. Just an aside, by the way, Yanis Liparis has slipped in between them.
Shout out to Yanis, another one of the best players in the UK, in my opinion.
In this table to make it an even tougher table, the reigning champion. One of the best players around.
And he must have doubled up as well, so he only started with 17.
Did he?
Yep.
Yeah, he's got more than that, hasn't he? New entrant in our fantasy basketball league this year, Yanis. So we get the flop we want, really, where nobody flops anything.
King 7-4 is the flop.
2 clubs, and Rich has got the ace of clubs, which is a pretty key card.
Ludo's option.
Yeah, Ludo will check. I don't know if he's already checked.
Yeah,
he's checked. No, I think Rich is going to continue.
Okay, so this is the next decision in the hand, whether we should see bet the flop or not. Generally, when we free bet, we have the range advantage. We have all of the aces, kings, queens, ace, king, all of the really good hands on this board. So betting is going to be something we want to do most of the time in position as the aggressor. Ace, queen is a nice hand to start betting with as well because we block some of the continue ranges with the ace of clubs. So we're going to win now quite a lot, which is really nice with ace high. We have some good cards to barrel on, so if we pick up some equity with a jack or a 10, these are nice cards to barrel. If we pick up a club, we can also just turn an ace. We're going to win now most of the time. So Ludo just folding a hand like jack 10 is still going to be good for us because it has 6 outs just to win against us. So I like continuing the story, remaining uncapped in our range, playing aggressively, so I like this bet.
Because you can pick up equity with this ace of clubs. That's a key thing. If a club comes on the turn, even if he misses again, he can bet again. He knows Ludo can't have the nuts.
Rich bets 8.5.
So you look at the bet sizing there. Yeah, it's all very...
And because we want to bet so much of our range here, it makes more sense to bet smaller. And so I'm a big fan of the sizing he's chosen.
Very interesting stuff, this, against 2 of the very best players around. Bet sizing smaller than he made it pre-flop, so this is a less than half pot bet. It's more like a 3rd pot bet. Is Ludo going to peel one?
And Ludo goes for the call. Again, I think the right play. Kellett's going to be betting most of his range here, so he has lots of ace queens, some ace jacks, some ace tens, also some queen jacks, some jack 10 suited, some queen 10 suited maybe, some ace 5 suited, ace 3 suited, ace 2 suited. And then depending on how wide he free bets, there's just a lot of hands that sixes are still ahead of. Sixes is going to be ahead enough of the time to make this call, and the price he's given him means that we just can't ever fold this hand yet, unless we think that our opponent is extremely tight. But again, even the sizing still, with the backdoor straight draw, and the fact that we can be ahead most of the time, I would never fold sixes here, really.
He is. Very hard for them to get any physical reads here because they're sat in such funny seats. So they're basically sat beside each other almost. They can't really be looking at each other. Another brick on the turn. It's not a club, so it doesn't pick up the equity. And now is Rich going to? This is the decision. Do you bet all three now? Are you going for it? Are you bombing it? Or are you thinking, oh, I picked up another out. I picked up a jack here as well. An ace is probably good. A queen might well be good. Don't want to get check raised off that equity. Interesting. Can see him doing either here, Rich. I think he'll probably check.
Okay, and now this is the first point in the hand where I would have probably strayed away from what Kellett did most of the time, not necessarily all of the time. But with this particular hand, we need to consider what our bet is going to achieve. And on this turn card, I can see that betting ace king is going to be something I want to do. Betting aces, betting king queen suited, betting king jack suited. Maybe barreling pocket queens and pocket jacks for a small size as well. So because there's so many hands that I want to be barreling on this turn that are good, it's important that we do have hands that obviously aren't necessarily good as well. And it's more important that we consider the hands that we're targeting to fold. So a really good thing about barreling this card is if Ludo has a hand like 7-8 suited, 7-6 suited, pocket 8s, pocket 9s, pocket 6s, maybe ace 4 suited, a lot of hands that have showdown less than a pair of 10s, they're just going to be in a really awkward spot now. And they're probably just going to have to fold because we don't know if Kellett's going to jam the river as a bluff if he is bluffing, if he just has it. It's just going to be too awkward moving forward out of position. So we have a lot of fold equity on the turn. The other thing to note is the stack depth. So the pot here is 44k roughly, and Ludo's effectively, this is the effective stack with just under 60k. So I would want to be barreling with all of my value hands to set up an all-in for less than the size of the pot. And we don't need to bet very big to achieve this. So we can even bet even less than a third of the pot on the turn if we wanted to. We could bet like 14,000. That's going to increase the pot by 28,000, making it over 70k, and leaving Ludo like 44k. So setting up the ability to bet free streets also gives us more fold equity with our bluffs and potentially a nicer situation with our value sometimes when we give him a better price with his like king queen, and then he's more obliged to call the river all in the times that we have better. So this is a texture that I'm going to be tripling a lot. I think ace queen and ace jack and queen jack are very, very good hands to do this with. Also jack 9 suited because it's a double gutter now, or my club draws. So all of the hands that I have that aren't really going to win at showdown, but I do want to continue with. And ace queen can win at showdown very infrequently. Like we beat ace jack of diamonds, and we beat like some club flush draws that don't have a 10, but I think I would still prefer to be barreling this combo. It also has the added extra benefit of the fact that when the club comes on the river, we just get to go all in as a bluff and just know that there's so many flushes that we block, and we're just going to get so many folds on the river. So we have more options on the river. And also we block king queen, which is a big part of Ludo's calling range on the turn. And we block like I said, the ace x of clubs, which are going to continue. So ace 10 of clubs, for example, is another turn continue we block. So yeah, for that reason, I would be barreling this hand nearly always. Not to say there's times that I wouldn't or reasons not to. There is, but I think I would be more frequently barreling. But let's move on with the hand as played as a check.
Yeah.
So it does check. The river is the 9 of spades. So Ludo, who check called the flop with the sixes. Are we checking again?
There's no way Ludo can bet here. All he's got is a bluff catcher. The question is whether when he checks, is Rich going to do anything? He's got a queen blocker, which blocks the nuts, but would he have bet queen jack on the flop, and then when he picks up and down, would he have slowed down? Probably not.
Yeah, and just to make a note on what Jeff's saying, I completely agree. It wouldn't really make sense for Ludo to bet here because he's just going to get called by all of the better hands unless he wants to turn his hand into a bluff and target hands like 10x or maybe 9x, 7x, pocket 8s, pocket queens, pocket jacks, but it's kind of just too out of line. You can still win against ace queen and ace jack, maybe like ace 4 suited. You've got enough showdown here to not necessarily have to bluff this combo, in my opinion. Not to say that I never would do that. There's some players that I would turn sixes into a bluff against here, but check is the thing I want to do. And just to counter Jeff's point about blockers here, it's not really relevant the queen in our hand because it doesn't block any of the queen jacks that Ludo has anyway. And in theory, like, we should be barreling all of our queen jacks on the turn. So queen jack isn't a hand that we ever want to rep as Kellett anymore because we just shouldn't really be checking it, at least not very often, or people wouldn't expect us to. And it's plausible that Ludo could have the queen jack of clubs, but the queen that we block with Kellett's hand is the queen of spades. So it's not relevant to Ludo's hand that we have a queen anymore, given that we've checked. It's more relevant for the fact we still block the king queen and hands that might value bet the river. So yeah, I would check as Ludo, which we're going to see that he does.
Not really, like we were saying about the clubs. If he picked up that equity, he probably would have bombed it again and hopefully won the pot there and then, and if not, try and get there. So the queen blocker isn't going to be that relevant, I don't think.
Well, Ludo does tap the table. And announces check, so it's on to Rich Kellett with the headphones.
The Rich has got, he's
announced all in.
And now here's where the controversy of this hand comes in. So there's so many ways to view this. First, I'm going to try and say from the perspective of Kellett, because in my opinion, he's a very, very good, well-thinking player. I know for a fact that Kellett is never going to go all in here if he doesn't also know he has value bets. He would just never consider that. So the fact that he is going all in here means he knows that he's going to check that turn with a lot of value. And some good examples of value bets to check the turn with, that could be pocket aces, pocket kings, maybe some ace kings, maybe king 10 suited, maybe pocket 10s, like hands that are super strong, but just not so vulnerable that they want to barrel. It's very plausible to check those and then go all in on the river for over pot because it looks like you don't really have anything. So I completely see that it's credible that Kellett has a value bet here. It's not as simple as he didn't barrel, so he doesn't have it. I would say that a lot of players, if they take this line, would be more likely bluffing, but I don't think that's true of Kellett. I genuinely know that he would have good hands here. But the most important part is, what does Kellett think Ludo thinks? Because this is a hand now, in this moment, between him and Ludo. It means absolutely nothing if Kellett knows that he has value bets here, if Ludo doesn't think he does. Because this is the decision Ludo is making in this moment right now. If Ludo thinks that by taking this line, Kellett never has value, Ludo can call with any pair. If Ludo thinks that it's always value, Ludo can fold a hand like King Queen. So it's completely about the subjective experience and view they have about each other, which is why poker is such a fascinating game. There's so much metagame implications between how you play hands against each other, especially when both people are professional players and they have so much thought process behind everything they do. It would be just naive to say that Kellett just is bluffing here and he didn't know what to do, because that's just clearly not true to me. So now it's down to Ludo to then try and put this together. Does he think that Kellett is more likely to be bluffing based on the price he's getting or not? And just to go slightly down the maths route, if we wanted to work out how often Ludo needs to call, we could just say 58,200 to win a part of 43.8 plus 58.2 times 2, which means that he needs to win quite a lot of the time, because it's over a pot size jam. He needs to win more than a third of the time for this to be a profitable call. So if someone bets the size of the pot, you're calling the size of the pot to win 3 times the size of the pot total. You need to win 1 in 3. So when someone bets over the size of the pot, you need to be right more often than that. So there's more pressure on this decision. So that's why going all in here is a very good method for Kellett putting pressure on people that are just going to think, oh, this is a huge decision. I'm not really sure, whatever. I'm just going to fold. A lot of people will have that line of thought. Ludo obviously isn't one of these people, because Ludo is a very good hand solver. So let's go forward and see him making this decision. And one other thing I would note is Kellett went all in relatively quickly, and so to a lot of people would have timing towers where they just make snap decisions and it means something very clearly, but it's another thing for people to figure out. So the fact that Kellett's gone all in so quickly here, is he doing that because he thinks Ludo's going to perceive it as always a bluff or always value, or is he just doing it because of another reason? I'm not sure, but I will say that I'm sure Kellett is very aware of the time he takes to make his decisions, and he's doing this because he thinks that it's going to work more often by him using this time, based on the metagame with him and Ludo in this moment. So let's carry on.
He did. Doesn't really make much sense. A bet that size doesn't make. He can easily have ace king here, Richard can. Don't get me wrong. That's one of the hands you 3-bet pre-flop that makes some sense. But then I don't think you slow down on the turn, then to bomb it on the river.
Yeah, and I like that straight away. Ludo's looking at Kellett here. He's trying to get an impression of his body language, of his comfort levels. not to sound like Daniel Negreanu, but everything you do at the table does really convey information. Like if you're going to sit there with your hands in a certain way, it means something. Whether your opponent can judge it or not, everything you do means something. No one acts identical every single time they bet. There's always subtleties that people give away. So I like to think that Ludo is trying his best to look at these subtleties right now.
And as I say, he's got the queen blocker, but it's, if you had queen jack, would you have 3-bet pre-flop, then bet the flop and then slow down when you're up and down? I'm not sure you would, really, would you?
I'd love to see what's going through his mind.
Yeah, and just to add, it's also very plausible that Kellett has pocket nines. That would make complete sense here. Or maybe a hand like 10-9 suited.
Ludo is one of the very...
Or king 9 suited for that matter. That's another hand that would bet check and then want a value bet, and an all-in size is good because it's a very polarized range once he checks the turn.
very best at breaking down hands.
And this is his tournament life.
You can see straight away his thoughts. What do you mean all in? How can you be all in? That doesn't make sense. What can he possibly have here? I mean, is there anything that the 9 improves? That he was checking down and then the 9 gets there? The queen jack, obviously. I mean, jack 8 now makes a straight. Is that a hand that he can have? Not really. Is he 3-betting jack 8 against Ludo?
And another thing I'll point out here, that when Kellett does go all in, obviously this is a polarized sizing. That means that Kellett now rules out a lot of hands that make sense for him to get to the river with, like the middling showdown hands. It now doesn't make very much sense for Kellett to play ace-10 this way, pocket queens, pocket jacks. Not to say that it's beyond the realms of possibility that he can play pocket queens this way. I think pocket queens as a jam here could actually be really, really good against some players when they are going to call with a hand like pocket sixes, because they don't think you've got anything when you take this line enough, and you block their king queen, which is one of their best check calls that's better than queens. So if Kellett was to think Ludo is going to value bet a lot of, like most of his king x and better on the river, queens could end up being a jam here. Most people would probably only have a hand like king jack or better once they take this line and are going to value jam for just over pot, but it's not as simple as that. It's just about how you think your opponent perceives you. So it's very possible that Kellett can have some of these thinner value bets.
You can see Ludo's just thinking, this makes no sense. He's got such a weak hand, Ludo, that he might actually have the worst hand. You know, Rich might be all in with bluffing with the best hand here. You know, if he's got some kind of 9 or 7. It doesn't make sense the way this hand played out. I think if Rich had bet 22k or something on the river, I think it's probably a pass pretty quick. But he's put maximum pressure on Ludo here, and it's, as you say, tournament life.
And just as an aside note, another good benefit of the small bet on the turn is, for one, I think sixes would fold, and a lot of 7x, pocket 8s, pocket 9s, all of these like slightly middling showdown hands that we're going to get the fold equity from already. We also could now go all in on the river and start to target the hands like pocket jacks or the ace-10 of clubs, or like these other sorts of hands sometimes. Or we could decide just to give up because we think Ludo's range is too strong to call a turn bet. But at least we'd have more options, and I think we'd be risking less. And again, Kellett could also have chose a smaller size on the river to represent more of the ace-10, jacks, queens, king x type hands, and maybe Ludo's thought process would be different to respond to that. Even though a small bet would give him a better price, that doesn't mean he's going to call more or less often. It's how often he thinks Kellett's bluffing.
The way Yanis has moved out of the way here, it's just showing a bit of etiquette. The two guys either side were playing a big pot. Yanis has just leant back, got out of the way if they want to stare each other down.
You know, you did this pre, I did that pre, left and right.
Replaying it all in his head.
Yeah.
Would you have checked it? Would you have...
What
Great call.
a call!
Great call by Ludo.
From Ludo. Gaelic has to be the call of the tournament so far.
Yeah, and I have to agree with Tower there. This is a fantastic call. You don't see this sort of stuff very often. It shows the caliber of the players here. Not many people would have even considered this call on the river, but Ludo put it together. He decided that the price he was getting was such that he was going to win enough of the time to make a profitable call, and he was right this time. So it's very well played to him. Let's just see how the commentary pans out now.
Wow. He's gone right back to when the dealer started dealing the cards, and he's replayed it in his mind. And as Jeff said, it didn't make sense. The jam on the river.
I don't think checking the turn and then jamming the river made sense. I think you can check the turn and bet 20k on the end, and you can definitely have ace king there, those kind of hands.
Yeah, and just as a comment to Jeff there, again, the fact that Jeff doesn't think this line makes sense means this line would be really good to do against Jeff specifically for value. So it's all about how your player perceives the actions you're taking and being aware of it. So in this case, I think it can make sense. I'm sure Kellett would know he does have aces here, ace king, and a lot of value bets, and that's more important for his decision making. As long as he knows that he's capable of having value here, then he can't feel hard about the way this hand actually panned out.
Checking the turn and then moving all in, it just looks a bit like it's I'm going to put maximum pressure on, and it'll work against 99% of people, to be fair. But Ludo's different class, you know. Ludo is very, very good at breaking down hands. He'll always tell you Ludo he's a field player. He's not a mathematical player. He'll always tell you he's a field player.
Yeah.
And that just, you can see it's...
And I will just slightly disagree with that as well. I don't think people are as black and white as feel or mathematical players. I think Ludo's both. I think Kellett's both as well. But I think they by feel player here, I think Jeff means they focus on this hand here right now. They don't think, oh, I need to call with a certain part of my range some percentage of the time and take a solver approach. They take the approach of, okay, I think Kellett is bluffing here too much, so I'm going to call with sixes as an exploit. So they take exploitative plays in hand more often, which isn't to say feel is a bad thing by any sense. That in fact, that I think that means it's a good thing, because it's taking the approach of what should I do in this situation right now rather than what should I do every time. It's going to yield you more EV as long as you have good intuition and you have a good idea of how you can see your opponents and how they can see you. So
As soon as Rich said all in, you could see Ludo's body language was, what? That didn't make sense. What do you mean you're all in? Really wasn't expecting that. I really think Ludo would have passed for a 20k bet there, 25k bet.
yeah, and it'd be interesting to see what Ludo says to that. Would he have folded to a smaller bet on the river? Would he have folded to a small turn bet? With that particular hand, I think he would have, but who knows? Maybe he just would have. He had more insight than I can see, and he would have made the call either way. But yeah, that's the end of this hand history. I hope you enjoyed. Saw some new perspective on the hand, maybe learned something. Thanks for watching.